Alright, time to do the Ultimate Fighter finale predictions. Most fights won't be terribly in-depth because a lot of them are between house contender versus house contender, and to be honest, you probably know what I do about those fights. We open up with James McSweeney, Travis Brown, or Brownie, or something like that. Brown spelled with an E. Anyways, taking Travis. I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's no way James McSweeney is 250 pounds, for starters. Just looking at his weight. He's an undersized heavyweight. He has really no wrestling, it seems. Not really much of a ground game. Travis does have some wrestling and will probably win this fight. By unanimous decision, McSweeney is a tough guy. James Hammertree, Chris Camozzi. I'm going to say Chris is the one that impressed me a lot more during the house, but I've gone back and forth against this because Hammertree might have the better wrestling. Chris didn't really show the slickest of submissions, but I'm going to go with Chris Camozzi. Not really sure on the method, but he is just, I think, a more game opponent than James Hammertree is. Josh Bryant, Kyle Noak. I gotta go with Josh Bryant. Kyle Noak showing deficient wrestling defense and deficient ability to get off his back and deficient everything that would be important when fighting a wrestler. Josh Bryant, decent wrestler, got some good hands. Kyle, maybe he can sprawl and brawl him, but I just don't see it. Brad Tavares, Seth Bakaczynski in a rematch. I picked Brad the first time. Picking him again. Seth is just not a UFC level fighter. I mean, if you are generally a can in the IFL, you probably have a problem. Tavares has got the wrestling advantage. I think he's got the stand-up advantage. Seth was going good against him in their fight until the DQ, but you sense the tide turning in Tavares' favor, and I think he's going to be even more ready this time. Anyways, John Gunderson, Mark Boots Holtz. A lot of faith in Mark Holtz. He's a Canadian fighter, and I like to back them when I can, but I don't see him having an answer for the ground game and the wrestling of John Gunderson. So I'm going with the unanimous decision for Gunderson. Jamie Yeager, Rich Antonito. I don't understand this fight. You had 3 guys on the show who wanted to fight Yeager. None of them are fighting him. I just think that's kind of stupid. Anyways, I'm going to go Rich Antonito because, I mean, my faith in Yeager is pretty limited against anyone that, has some wrestling and has the ability to take a punch, which, though Antonito is getting a bad rap for, faking a knee to the head against Kaisi Skola, getting him DQ'd, he did show me something. He can take a punch, and if you can take a punch, you seem to be able to beat Yeager. That's what Josh Bryant kind of showed us, and Yeager has not beaten anyone that makes me think that that's not true. So, it's an interesting fight in the fact that, Yeager's got a lot of hype coming off the show with the knockouts. And there's a lot of potential in him, really. He's a outstanding athlete. He's got good speed. He's got good power. They transition nicely. But he seems to have a bit of a heart deficiency, and that's something you can't teach. We'll see. We will see. But I'm going with Rich via a 3rd round stoppage. I think it takes a while. Dennis Seaver, Spencer Fisher. Going with Spencer Fisher. Better at everything, basically. I think he's a better stand-up fighter. He's a better wrestler. He's a better ground game guy. Dennis Seaver's a guy who's got a couple of highlight reel knockouts, but aside from that, whenever he fights anyone with legitimate skills, he generally loses. I guess the one exception to that was he beat Paul Kelly, which is a fight that, generally speaking, I didn't think he would win. But aside from that, his notable opponents are Jess the Joker Lee Ouden, Gray Maynard, Melvin Gilliard, and Ross Pearson. He lost to all of them. So the wins are over Nate Moore, Naoki Katani, and Dale Ardle. So yeah, I'm trying to figure out how, because he doesn't get submitted much, but I get the feeling that I'm going to take a Spencer Fisher submission here. or maybe a TKO. Let's go with submission. Spencer Fisher by submission, second round. Next up, Aaron Simpson, Chris the Crippler Lieben. Gotta love me Lieben. That being said, Aaron Simpson, I think, has a better stand-up game than Lieben, because despite the fact that Lieben has the reputation of being a striker, his striking isn't actually all that good. Aaron Simpson is a terrific wrestler. He's got a great chin. He's got good power. I just see him being able to exchange when he has to. Take down Lieben pretty much at will. Apologize for the pausing. Watching the Ultimate Fighter recap, and sometimes there's something interesting happens that I gotta watch. But yeah, I'm taking Aaron Simpson by unanimous decision. This is one of those times where, you know, it's the same thing with Lieben always. I mean, anyone who really is going upwards in the division will beat Chris Lieben. If you don't, then you're probably on your way out. Matt Hamill, Keith Jardine. Jardine's got a better striking game than Hamill, but when your weapon is striking, he doesn't have the ground game to take down, or to not take down Hamill, but submit Hamill, I don't think. I don't think he can stop Hamill's takedowns if Hamill actually mixes up the striking and the boxing. I think if you get the typical Hamill, I think he will be able to keep it off the ground. But Jardine has the X factor that no fighter wants to have. And we saw it against Bader. He could be winning, and he just doesn't have a chin. And Hamill's got power, if nothing else. And if he hits him anywhere near the button, I think Jardine goes out. Or at least gets knocked down, and then Hamill can finish him on the ground. So I'm going with Hamill. I'm going to say a second round stoppage. He could also win a decision. Could be even be later into the third round. If Jardine wins this, you know, all the more props to him. I mean, he's a fighter that I want to see do well because he has the skills, but his chin is just not really there, and his wrestling is not really there. Plus, you know, 3 straight losses can't be good for the mentality of him, even if they are to Rampage, Thiago Silva, and Ryan Bader. And finally, in the finale, Chris McCrae, Court McGee. I think Chris is the better potential fighter in that he is a very athletic individual who seems to learn reasonably quickly, who has a good explosive wrestling base, has some stand-up, has some ground game, seems to have gotten his cardio sorted out. And I'm going to pick him, even though I really don't like Chris McCrae. I don't like anyone that kind of is associated with Yeager outside of Kyle Nogue doesn't seem to be a bad guy, but Tavares and Chris McCrae, who I may not have necessarily disliked, kind of got a bad rub off that. Although I didn't particularly like McCrae before that, but I think he's the better wrestler, and that's pretty big when you're fighting a guy who's primarily a wrestler. Court McGee has solid stand-up. I would say the better stand-up. He has, I would say, the better ground game. But I don't see him being able to sub Chris McCrae from his back. And I don't really see him being able to stop Chris McCrae's takedowns. So that's why I'm going Chris McCrae. Unanimous decision. If Court wins, it in no way will surprise me. I didn't think he would beat Tavares, and he did, so there you go. So that's the predictions for this card. You know what? By the standards of a free Ultimate Fighter card, this isn't half bad. And I like that. So anyways, here's hoping James McSweeney loses, because I can't stand him. Later.